All right. Green Street Consulting, please kick us off. And I will, at the 10-minute mark, I'll just chime in and say, hey, you got a minute left. Okay. All right. The floor is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity to return. Today, we're speaking to you as a board responsible for the ethical direction of one of the most powerful and disruptive technologies of our time, generative AI. Anthropic's mission to build reliable, steerable, and interpretable AI systems signals a deep commitment to safety, but there's an urgent ethical issue that needs to be confronted head on: the role of generative AI in the creation and spread of child sexual abuse material, CSAM. Since 2019, there's been an 87% increase in AI-generated CSAM. These are not theoretical threats. Law enforcement has already flagged over 13,500 AI-generated CSAM images circulating on the dark web in the last year. These include deepfakes, nudified images, and synthetic child abuse content, created with tools just like Claude. These aren't just edge cases, they're criminal violations that result in the direct harm of real children. And as your AI system, Claude, becomes more accessible, the risk of misuse grows rapidly, including by children themselves. As the AP reported, teens are using deepfake apps in schools to manipulate each other's images, turning abuse into a viral trend.
Yeah, thank you, Ariana. So despite these risks, your current safeguards are limited. Claude reports detected CSAM to the NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and that's a good first step. But there's no dedicated child safety team reviewing flagged content in Anthropic, and there's no detailed internal protocol for reviewing prompts related to a child's likeness or identity, as well as a lack of mention of CSAM specific procedures in your constitution. The only child-focused guideline we found was that Claude should be, quote, helpful, honest, and harmless to children. But that does nothing to address prompts that seek to generate CSAM. It's not enough to rely on the over 18 age disclaimer in Section 7 of your privacy policy when children are already on your platform and you have no true age restriction measures. A 2024 Common Sense Media survey found that 7 in 10 teens are using generative AI regularly. Claude can't even verify age beyond an email address, and the BBC reported that 1 in 5 kids use fake emails to access restricted platforms like Instagram and other social media sites, making it likely that that's also happening on AI platforms such as ChatGPT and Claude.
To address this problem, your first ethical responsibility is to educate your users, especially children and families. We recommend a three-part approach to protecting the identities of children on your platform, including the following. 1. Building educational consumer training modules. 2. Bolstering your reporting mechanism to NCMEC. And 3. Creating a proactive lobbying strategy with other generative AI companies for legislative protection of children. First, I will start with our recommendation to build a consumer training module. This step should begin with partnering with a trusted organization that is active in youth tech education and digital parenting. This partnership would involve co-designing and developing training modules that integrate gamified learning, interactive scenarios, and short video content about safe Gen AI practices for kids. After doing thorough research, we believe Connect Safely is the strongest fit for this consumer training initiative. They're a nonprofit that produces practical, accessible safety content for families, educators, and children. Their work includes digital guides, podcasts, videos, and school-based programs covering topics like AI, online privacy, and digital parenting. They've partnered with major tech platforms in the past, including Meta and TikTok, and they specialize in making complex tech topics understandable and actionable for everyday users. Now that we've identified Connect Safely as the ideal partner, let's talk about what the co-design training should actually include. Your training modules should focus on 3 core areas to promote safe and responsible AI use among children and families. First, it should address prompting and image generation ethics, the heart of our ethical case. Children need to learn how to prompt responsibly and recognize when AI content crosses ethical lines. Second, the training must teach privacy and data awareness. Children often don't know how their information is being stored. This module should help kids develop habits to protect their own identity and digital footprints. Lastly, the module should focus on digital well-being and emotional boundaries, helping kids understand that AI companions are not emotional substitutes. Our research shows that unhealthy emotional attachments to AI can lead children to share personal images and information, content that can be exploited and misused later down the line. This structure is ethically necessary because it directly addresses the real-world harms we already see, from the rise of CSAM to kids creating or being targeted by inappropriate prompts. These are not hypothetical risks, they are happening now. We have just covered the first step in our three-step solution, building consumer training modules. Your second action item under our three-step framework is to improve your internal CSAM reporting mechanisms and to make those processes transparent to users. While Anthropics already reports to NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, we recommend that you expand and clarify this system. First, publish clear internal guidelines outlining what types of user inputs may be flagged and reported to NCMEC. Second, assign a dedicated child safety team to manage these flagged user inputs. Right now, you have a broad safeguards team that handles all general misuse, but given the ethical urgency of CSAM, we believe you need a dedicated team that can ensure compliance with changing legislation. This team will also offer continuous human review in the reporting channel to NCMEC, preventing any errors like false positives that could turn users with good intent away from using your platform. Third, we urge you to strengthen Claude's constitution by adding clear, robust policies around child identity, likeness, and prompts that imply exploitation. Currently, children are mentioned only 3 times in your constitution, with no guidance on these critical privacy and safety concerns. Updating the constitution is the most ethical path forward. It protects your most vulnerable users, anticipates future regulation, and reinforces Anthropic's leadership in responsible AI.
Yeah, thank you, Ariana.
So now that we've covered 2 out of our 3 recommendations, we want to cover our final recommendation, which lies in your responsibility to help shape policy through a strategic lobbying plan. So OpenAI has already started lobbying for AI safety regulation, and we recommend that you join or form a coalition to do the same with a specific focus on child safety. This gives you a voice in how policy is written rather than having to adapt to policy later. Anthropic should push for legislation that not only increases mandatory child safety standards for AI platforms, but also increases content moderation requirements and requires third-party annual audits to ensure that compliance mechanisms are in place. Anthropic could work to partner with various companies such as Thorn, OpenAI, Common Sense Media, and the Family Online Safety Institute. These partnerships would not only help to increase Anthropic's credibility with lawmakers, but would expand their financial resources and expertise for not only domestic, but global lobbying as well. By influencing regulation around CSAM and generative AI, you help ensure responsible standards while securing a long-term compliance advantage. So, as a recap, we recommend that you follow a 3-step approach to protect your youngest and most vulnerable users. First, building out a parent and child-centric consumer training module with Connect Safely. Second, bolstering your existing reporting channel to NCMEC by establishing a dedicated child safety team and publishing internal guidelines for flagging suspicious user inputs. And third, begin strategically planning to lobby with key Gen AI players in the industry to get ahead of legislation around child safety and AI.
Ethical stakes here are not theoretical, they're immediate. It is not the time to turn a blind eye and hope for the best. Children are already using Claude. Bad actors are already misusing generative AI to create CSAM, and institutions from Congress to FTC are preparing to act now. The only question is, will you lead or follow? By building real protections, educating users, and engaging in policy work, you can lead the AI industry in the right direction, not just by building powerful systems, but by protecting those most vulnerable to harm. If your mission is to build safe, steerable, and interpretable AI, then protecting children from exploitation must be a core feature, not a secondary fix. Anthropic has the opportunity to set the gold standard in AI safety, but the time to lead is now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And up next, we have Optimal Consulting.
Hello, Grinder executives, and thank you for inviting us back and taking the time to listen to our follow-up presentation today. Optimal Solutions Consulting will discuss the ethical issues surrounding microplastics. I'm Ben Welch, and I'm joined by
Ben Lagner, and I'm Grayson Jackson.
First, I'll be discussing the dispersion of microplastics into our environment and the effects on human health, and touch on disproportional effects of microplastics to vulnerable groups. Then I'll be passing it to Grayson, who will dive deeper into environmental and social justice concerns, corporate responsibility, and intergenerational equity. Finally, Ben will wrap up our presentation by discussing the current state of consumer responsibility and providing our solutions. When looking into how microplastics interact with the human body, we first need to understand how microplastics disperse throughout our environment and eventually make their way back into our systems. Plastic packaging is a primary source of these pollutants. They are often discarded improperly or left to degrade in the environment. As plastics are non-biodegradable, they persist in our ecosystems for years. Plastic then breaks down into pieces less than 5 millimeters in size and becomes microplastics, which are in the soil that we use to grow our crops, the water we drink, the food we eat, and even the air we breathe. Whether through ingestion, inhalation, or skin absorption, microplastics pose a significant threat to human health. Microplastics carry harmful chemicals, such as BPAs, phthalates, and flame retardants, and these substances are linked to a range of health problems, including endocrine or hormone disruption, an increased risk for cancer and developmental issues, as well as chronic diseases like high blood pressure. Ingested microplastics can also accumulate in the human tissue, raising concerns about the long-term effects of exposure to these particles. Furthermore, microplastics disproportionately affect vulnerable populations, such as children and individuals that are living in low-income areas. In children whose bodies are still developing, the risk of exposure is even more pronounced, potentially leading to permanent developmental and behavioral issues. Marginalized communities often bear the brunt of plastic pollution due to their proximity to polluted environments like industrial zones and contaminated water sources. As microplastics continue to accumulate in our ecosystems and our bodies, the full impact on human health remains a critical area of study, necessitating urgent corporate action to mitigate pollution and address long-term consequences of exposure to these microplastics. Now, I'll be passing it to Grayson, who will further explore the disproportionate effects of microplastics on vulnerable populations, as well as speak on corporate responsibility and intergenerational equity.
Thank you, Ben. Microplastic pollution isn't just a global problem, it's also a social justice issue. Low-income and marginalized communities are often the hardest hit by pollution, including plastic waste. These communities are more likely to live near landfills, waste treatment plants, and industrial sites where plastic waste is dumped or burned. They often have limited access to clean water and healthcare, making them more vulnerable to the health impacts of microplastics. This creates an ethical imbalance. The people who contribute the least to plastic pollution suffer the most from its consequences. On top of that, many companies continue to produce single-use plastic packaging without taking responsibility for the environmental harm it causes. From an ethical perspective, the key issues here are companies not informing consumers about the risks of microplastic pollution. Companies that create plastic waste are not held responsible for the cost of cleaning it up. And finally, companies prioritize profit when it puts public health and the environment at risk. Some argue that a polluter pays model is the answer, where companies are legally required to fund cleanup efforts and invest in sustainable alternatives. Microplastic pollution is not just a problem for us, it's a problem for future generations. Plastics don't biodegrade. They break down into smaller and smaller particles, persisting in ecosystems for hundreds or even thousands of years. This creates a major ethical issue around intergenerational equity. The idea that we have a moral duty to ensure that future generations inherit a clean and healthy planet. Right now, we're prioritizing short-term convenience over long-term sustainability. If we continue down this path, future generations will face polluted oceans and soil, widespread biodiversity loss, and increased health risks from microplastic exposure. Addressing microplastic pollution requires more than just individual action. It demands systemic change. Governments, corporations, and global institutions must work together to create stronger regulations, invest in alternatives to plastic, and ensure that those most affected have a voice in environmental decision-making. Without action now, the cycle of environmental injustice will only deepen, threatening both people and the planet for generations to come. Furthermore, education and awareness also play a critical role in driving change. Many people are still unaware of how pervasive microplastics are. They are found in our food, our water, air, and even our bodies. By increasing public understanding, we can empower communities to demand accountability and push for more responsible production and consumption practices. Now, I'll be passing it on to Ben Lagner.
Thank you, Grayson. I will now be moving into consumer responsibility. Right now, most of the burden lies with the consumer when it comes to avoiding single-use plastics and microplastics. There are options for consumers to pick from, but consumers are left with a lack of variety in goods to choose from, as it is difficult to find alternatives to plastic in today's world. Alternatives are also usually more expensive, making it less accessible to the consumer, especially in lower income neighborhoods where many households are not able to search for more expensive alternatives as it is. In the end of the day, what can the consumer really do? They can try their best to pick alternatives, but single-use plastics are used in so many food products and packaging products that it is nearly impossible to avoid. There are also so many hidden effects from the consumer that aren't shown to them, like chemicals that are used in the packaging and are not disclosed, leaving consumers uninformed of what they're putting into their bodies. And corporations don't feel the need to share what it is they're putting in their packaging, as it is not required. Which now leads me into our solutions on how to best solve the single-use plastic problem. First, we need stronger regulations. We feel that the government should be stepping in and playing a much bigger role in the single-use plastic and microplastic battle. Corporations should be forced by the government to find alternate options to single-use plastic packaging. Corporations can no longer continue to let corporate greed cloud their vision when it comes to sustainable practices and invest in our future. Corporate accountability is our next solution. We feel that corporations should be responsible for changing to more sustainable and healthier alternatives. Corporate producers have control of what they're putting in packaging, so why would we not start at the root of the problem and solve it from the beginning? Sustainable alternatives is our third solution. We feel that if sustainable options are not actively pursued, then we will never make change. And if we do not shift to healthier and more natural solutions, then we will continue to hurt ourselves and the planet we call home. Education and transparency is another solution we find to be crucial. If we can educate consumers and producers on the effects of microplastics and the effects that they have on humans' health, and like also the effects that plastic production have on human health, then we feel that the change will be made. Once everyone is informed, we feel that with the increased awareness, consumers will demand a safer, renewable form of packaging. And our final and most important solution is to implement hemp packaging. If we can add hemp packaging, then we can help to create a healthier planet. Microplastics will be greatly decreased. Hemp packaging also helps to eliminate and fight the use of fossil fuels, keeping our environment healthy and our ecosystems healthier. Hemp packaging will also lead to less pollution in our environment, as hemp is biodegradable, leaving less toxic garbage in our landfills, streets, and ecosystems. Microplastics accumulate, meaning this problem will never just go away on its own. So we can continue down the path of short-term convenience, or we can act now to protect public health, ensure environmental justice, and safeguard the future of our planet.
We are Optimal Solutions Consulting. We hope that you consider implementing some of our solutions, and thank you for listening to our presentation.
For the ECC team, you are next, and you have 10 minutes to go. I will give you the heads up at 9 minutes that you have 1 minute left, but I'm sure you will be able to manage the time pretty well. Sounds good. All right. Thank you, Grayson. Okay. The floor is now yours, team.
Okay. Thank you for having us here. So today we'll be presenting about the ethical considerations involved in sustainable agriculture. So keeping ethics as the core of our analysis, we will be evaluating a software company named Regrow Agriculture's approach to environmental ethics, transparency, and accountability, and ensure that its sustainable efforts are data-driven and impactful. We will also assess its commitment to equity and accessibility for farmers of all scales, as well as the long-term social impact and its agricultural solutions. Now I will pass on to Abdullah to address the environmental ethics.
Yep. So when it comes to environmental ethics, we do obviously have to think about how to address all aspects of sustainability. So that would include biodiversity, soil health, carbon sequestration, and emissions reduction, as well as other factors like crop output, avoiding greenwashing, which means backing your information with data, as well as having curated assistance. So when it comes for biodiversity, it is really important to not just have a variety of plants, but the reason biodiversity is really important, Detroit regrow agriculture does is because of the improved resilience against pests, disease, and climate change would obviously improve the long-term yields. When it comes to soil health, healthy soil retains water. It also reduces erosion and enhances nutrient availability. So this can be done by techniques like no-till farming and using organic matter enrichment to improve the microbiomes in the soil. When it also comes to digital tools nowadays, we can also use that to monitor the soil health in real time. When it comes to carbon sequestration, which is obviously removing the carbon out of the atmosphere, cover crops and reduced tillage can increase the organic carbon storage. So that would improve the yields on the long term. We can also incentivize farmers that are uh, contributing to this as much as possible by data-driven carbon credit programs that offer financial incentives, um, as well as emission reductions by these techniques and by improving efficiency, as well as crop output, since these sustainable practices um, would improve the crop quality. Um, and last but not least, it would be curated assistance. So it's very important to have solutions for every farmer. So not all farmers have the same market or have the same influence on the industry. So having curated solutions for each is very important. Moving on to transparency and accountability.
Okay, so the next ethical factor that I'm going to be talking about is transparency and accountability. So in today's agricultural market, the effectiveness of regenerative practices is backed by solid data. There are techniques like cover cropping and no-till farming, which have led up to 20% higher soil organic matter, reducing the need for synthetic fertilizers. Practices like rotational grazing and crop diversification help improve the yield stability and cut input costs, which actually benefits the environment and the farmers as well. But for these practices to grow, we need to make this information accessible and actionable to all the farmers. What is the point of all this if the farmers don't understand this? So for this, we could use simple solutions such as dashboards, visual tools, and real-world case studies to clearly show the benefits of regenerative methods. With the help of these, farmers should easily be able to see the side-by-side comparisons and understand exactly how these practices impact their land and their productivity. Next, it's essential to engage with scientific research. So by partnering with universities and using tools like satellite imaging and AI-driven soil analysis, we can validate claims and track real-time sustainability data. Supporting on-farm trials and long-term research could also help build confidence and encourages innovation among a lot of farmers in today's world. Finally, we must hold clients accountable. That starts with setting measurable sustainability targets like soil health and emission reductions and tracking progress through regular reporting and third-party audits. So, in other words, we must offer practical, tailored support, incentive real improvements, and ensure accountability when sustainability falls under the agricultural world. Now, I will let Abdullah continue with the equity and accessibility.
So as I talked earlier, equity between farmers is very important in providing solutions for each and every one. Special to them is really important. So that is also another challenge that we have to address. Since some farmers would have limited access to capital, which would obviously make it difficult to invest in sustainable practices. Lack of technical knowledge or training is also a really big thing, as well as market barriers preventing them from competing with the large-scale industrial farmers. Um, so the reason why it is even better for them to proceed with regenerative agriculture is because of the lower input costs, improved soil health, and access to carbon markets and sustainability certifications, which can possibly generate new revenue streams. Um, it's also really important to have customized support for the small farmers again, since and that can come in the forms with microloans, and also developing low cost and low tech solutions tailored to them. Hands-on training programs would be really beneficial too. Another part would obviously to face the challenge of expanding your digital and technological access. So obviously, many of these farmers lack access to high-speed internet and modern farm technology. And obviously, if we were able to develop offline compatible mobile tools for tracking, for example, soil health or weather patterns, that would be really beneficial. Partnering with the local cooperatives to provide shared access to digital resources is very important too. So, um, so obviously, last but not least, we would help small farmers participate in all of these programs by providing guidance. And also, as MA said, we would simplify the data collection in order to reduce the burdens. And also to have fair policies that ensure that these small farmers receive equal benefits from these sustainability initiatives. Moving on to MA with the long-term social impact.
Okay, so the last but not the least factor of the ethical considerations, let's talk about the long-term social impact of sustainable agriculture. So as we all know that education in this field is really essential. Most of the farmers still aren't aware of the economic and environmental benefits of regenerative agriculture, and that's why we need clear data-driven training programs that offer practical, scalable solutions tailored to different farm sizes and regions. We can deliver this education in multiple ways. Some of these can include hands-on workshops, mobile apps, and online platforms that provide real-time insights. Collaborations with universities and extension services can also help translate scientific research into real-world practices. And looking forward, we must educate the next generation by integrating sustainability into agricultural degree programs and supporting students through mentorship and funding. Second, regenerative agriculture is reshaping the labor force. As we transition away from conventional methods, we're seeing job growth in areas like soil health, carbon accounting, and precision agriculture. More labor-intensive practices like crop diversification and rotational grazing can also create local employment opportunities. But this change obviously it isn't always easy. Some farmers and workers may resist the shifts due to financial risks or lack of training. They feel that they sometimes do not get enough return on what they invest. And that's where targeted education and support comes into play. And policymakers must ensure that no one is left behind as technology evolves. Lastly, we must address the role of automation, which is nothing but smart tech like robotic weeding or AI soil monitoring. All this can boost sustainability and efficiency, but it can also displace farm laborers, especially on smaller farms. To ensure a fair transition, we need to offer unskilling programs for affected workers and promote shared ownership models so that small farmers can access automation without being pushed out. Governments and other organizations should also invest in such cost-sharing programs for digital tools, making sustainability access to all, not only large-scale operations. So, in summary, sustainability is not just about farming or making the environment better. It's about the people. With the right education, labor support, and equitable access to technology, we can make regenerative agriculture work for everyone. Now, I'll let Abdullah conclude with her presentation for today.
Uh, why don't you take the next 5 seconds to kind of wrap it up?
Okay, yeah.
Sure. So, obviously, as we have ran through, there are a lot of creative and innovative solutions when it comes to regrow agriculture. Although there are some problems to address, as the workers, obviously securing their jobs. Will small scale farmers still be competing with the big industry farmers? So it's obviously very important to provide special solutions to these farmers as well as providing answers with simplified data in order to inform all farmers about these efforts.
Thank you so much. Why, I welcome all the teams back. Well, congratulations. you finished your presentation. So I think this is the last one, and now you get to take a deep breath and saying it's all done, right? But congratulations on the presentations. I think each team addressed some very critical and impactful issues in business ethics, and it's definitely very optimistic for me to be able to have the honor of listening to the issues that you're raising and your proactiveness in trying to get to a solution and help us become a better world. So thank you so much for all of that. And I know it's a lot of work that you put in, and you should definitely give yourself a pat in the back. And for me, I'm very excited to see the passion that is coming out of all of these presentations. All right. So one of the things I'll do now is to share a little bit feedback that are both very insightful to and also some suggestions that will hopefully help you refine your presentation skills and deepen your knowledge of the business ethics issue as you progress into this area where you're pursuing a lot of solutioning that are very impactful. All right, so let me start with Green Street Consulting. I really enjoyed your presentation. I think you hit on a very hot topic right now, especially around AI and all the things that can be done with AI. While it's transforming the way we operate as a society, there's a lot of blind spots that we have to consider, and privacy especially for children is such an important thing. So from your presentation, I was able to understand what the ethical issue is and the business ethical issue that would come out of leveraging AI as part of your business, right? One of the things I would recommend is to know your presentation cold. And then this is generally for all the teams here, it's challenging because you are behind a screen, so it's very easy to start reading your script. And because you read your script, it takes away from your engagement with the people who's on the other side of the screen, right? So you want to just memorize it, practice it, and deliver it on point, and then really leaning in to emphasizing the points that you want people to walk away with. That's a big thing, right? And I feel that if you're reading out of the script, it was taking away from the critical points that you were highlighting. So it kind of went like past really quick, right? So whenever you deliver a very important point, stop, pause for a couple of seconds, let people think about it, and continue. And in a short presentation, silence can feel very awkward, but in what you're talking about, it can be very impactful and very powerful to deliver a message. Here's the business ethical issue. Here is what I'm suggesting as a solution and why it's practical and feasible. Let people pause, think about it, and then proceed. So those are some of the examples of when you're doing virtual presentation. I think overall, you definitely did some pretty good research, and you included some examples that helped me relate to what the message was. And I can see that there's quite a bit of depth in your analysis. So overall, continue to lean in and explore the topics and really understand what is it that business is struggling with. Yes, they might be aware that there's a privacy issue with leveraging AI, but what is preventing them from seeing this as a business ethical issue? And so that you can be prepared to answer those questions in the future. And then lastly, delivery, right? Kind of what I was saying at the beginning. Don't read your script, memorize it, know what are the points that you want people to walk away with, and really emphasizing on the call to action and why it's a business ethics issue and not simply a business performance issue. Okay? Overall, congratulations, very well done, and thank you so much for sharing your presentation with me. and all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Optimal Solutions Consulting. Let's see. Tobacco Transparency Consulting, the Ethics of Nicotine Import. A closer look at Zin's role in the US market, right?
That wasn't our, that's like another group, like that's not us. We're
Okay.
like Hemp Packaging and Optimal Solutions Consulting is the name of our team.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, that
So it's
text
all
is
good.
wrong. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. I thought that what you were sharing, it was very clear to me what the ethical issue was. You definitely emphasized it in a lot of different area within your presentation. So I didn't, as I was going through your presentation, I didn't have to guess what the ethical issue was. It was easy for me to follow. And you definitely emphasized on the integrity and the accountability that businesses play in affecting positive change and perpetrating equity. So that was very well delivered. It was very clear to me. One thing I would recommend from a presentation perspective is when you're doing virtual and you stand back from the screen, it's very hard for me to engage with you virtually. I can't see your face. I can't see your facial expression. I'm not having a conversation with you. I'm watching a presentation, right? So in a virtual environment, one of the best things that you can do is sit up close and have that engagement with the person who's listening to you. And you can see their facial expression. Obviously in this one you couldn't, but you can really emphasize certain things with the way your facial expressions come out. So one thing I would recommend is not to step back. Another area that would really strengthen your argument is to avoid absolute languages or very black and white, because remember, you are presenting to executives, you're presenting the board, so people who are invested in the company. So you don't want to avoid languages like corporate greed, right? Because all of a sudden they're going to get on defense. So you want to figure out what are the languages that's going to make them feel like you are hearing them out, that you're listening, that they're facing between having to address shareholders' concern and then also balancing between ethical matters that are business related. So the minute you say corporate greed, people will get on defense. And then also other absolute languages like we always do this or you must do this, or very strong language around you are not doing enough. You're not doing this. Because you're consultants, right? You want people to feel like you're hearing them out, you're listening to their solutions. And so just kind of strengthen your presentation and making sure that you're using languages that people are willing to listen to. But otherwise, thank you so much. You've done very well, and I can tell that you prepared for your presentation, and really put a lot of thoughts into it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. And last but definitely not least, our ECC team, and making sure I have the name right. Using technology to expand sustainable and ethical farming techniques.
Yep,
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Perfect. We have lots of last minute changes. So, well done. Thank you so much for all the time and thoughts that you put into this. I think that ethical farming is definitely an area that have sparked my interest after your presentation. Your presentation actually has a call to action for me that I felt like I was able to take away, because there are more ethical issues, business ethical issues within this area that I was not aware of. And I think that you definitely highlighted on some of those areas. And I think that you've done a lot of research and you try to provide a lot of examples that were very research based. So thank you so much for that. a couple of area where it can really strengthen your presentation is, like I mentioned with the other team, know it like the back of your hand, right? You know this topic so well. And I bet if you were outside, you could talk to each other like nothing, right? So you want to have that, know it cold, because this is a topic that I can tell you're pretty passionate about. So I want to hear it. I want to see it. I don't want to see you reading from a script, because that takes away from you delivering a passionate topic and really highlighting what is the business ethics issue. What is the actual issue? You're talking about an ethical matter. So making sure that you're engaging and really emphasizing and leveraging your tone and facial expression to make sure that you are getting your audience like, hey, I'm talking to you. This is a really important topic. We need to do something about it. Here's what we need to do. Okay? And all the things that you were saying were very very well supported. One of the things I would also recommend is you do have several solutions that you were embedding in that. And so it was a little hard for me to follow which solution, what exactly is the recommended solution to address that ethical issue. There were a couple of area, right? And so figure out, okay, you got like 4 different things that you're recommending. How do you package it in a one single solution that would allow for people to explore? So condense it, package it, and then deliver that message. But other than that, I mean, thank you for educating me and making sure that I walk away from this knowing what the ethical issues are with farming techniques. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, I would like to thank you for the feedback, and I'm actually really happy that you were able to like actually benefit from like our whole issue, because I feel like it's the same for us all, the whole team. When we researched the topic more and we went more deep into it, we actually found it to be really interesting and really having a lot of parts to investigate when it comes to ethics, right? So I'm really happy for that, and I want to appreciate you for the feedback.
you're so welcome, and I thank you, and I hope that you take it and you continue to really explore this topic. A lot of communities are impacted by how we farm. It's always a balance between cost, profit, and hey, who are the communities that's being marginalized, or how are we protecting our planet? So I hope that you will take it to the next level, and then in the next time you run across a business executive in the elevator, that you really stop that person and give them your 90-second speech. But know it cold, okay? All right. Well, all the best to you. Good luck, and I hope to see you again one day in the newspaper on making some positive changes.
Well,